I don't remember exactly when I first met Dan, but I just remember Gayle saying, "No, he can be kind of a smart ass, but," and I was like, oh, okay. But I mean, I think he's hilarious.
He's one of the few people that I can say, after knowing him for just a short time, it was kind of like we should have been friends since we were small children. I mean, we just got along so well. Really felt like I never had a brother, and if I did, he probably would have been exactly who my brother would have been.
I was a couple years older than Dan, and I always wanted a sister. And so Dan would let me dress him up in dresses, and I'd be able to, gosh, I had a huge pile of dress-up clothes, and he would let me do it as long as I played G.I. Joe guys with him at the end. So
I would say he is like a brother in a way. I think he's got a very similar personality to Ben's, but yet he also has some of my personality in a way, so it's easy to connect.
And he's very caring. I was tailgating with him one time, and this was before they got engaged. It was probably like less than a month before they got engaged. He had had a little bit to drink, which is why I know he was saying this. He's just not the type to like talk about his feelings unless he's had a little bit. And he was just like, oh, I just love Gayle. I mean, she's the best. She just has such a kind heart, and was just going on and on. I was thinking, yeah, I mean, you're right, but you're also drunk.
I think Dan is a good balance for Gayle, and he's just so laid back and go with the flow, and sometimes she can get caught up in the details of stuff, and Dan can see the big picture and that's not what we need to focus on, or just like it'll be okay.
When Ben and Dan's grandpa passed away, Ben took it really hard, and I had a lot on my plate, and so this happening was enough to overwhelm me. And Dan was really awesome about stepping in and helping support us and organizing all the plans and the travel plans, and I really appreciated that, having somebody there to help.
my brothers were at our house, and we were just hanging out, and I had 2 children at the time. So I was an adult and he was a young adult, and my second child, Claire, started choking on something, and my older brother started freaking out and running around, what do we do, what do we do, what do we do? And Dan just grabbed right a hold of her and pounded on her, and she just, everything came lodged out and totally saved the day. It was great. So
I met Gayle when her and Dan started dating. And I remember very distinctly at that point, I'd kind of started to feel very much, you're like a brother to me. I'm not so certain how, any girl that you bring is gonna measure up to who I think you should be dating. And when we met, it was almost freaky how well I got along with Gayle as well. It wasn't very long after they had started dating that I actually told Dan, if you somehow don't manage to make this work, I may keep her, and you might be out of luck, because I just thought she was so wonderful.
Gayle and we very first met when we were in a children's opera together, and I think it was 3rd grade. We didn't really get super close until we went to college. The summers we would come home and we would go out, and we would just I would always go over to her place, and we would just talk, and we would invite people over, and we would make dinner and watch The Bachelor every Monday night. That was kind of our thing, and we would always kind of daydream about the guy we would eventually marry and how we hoped we would never have to go on The Bachelor, and it all worked out.
So Gayle is one of those friends that I really admire because she balances professional and personal responsibilities very well. And she is very understanding of where you are in your life. So obviously when I met her, she was single, and during that trip to Florida, she talked about Dan and meeting him. She had met him very recently when we went to Florida. And she talked about liking his face and how cute he was. And I had a picture of Dan during that trip, but she was one of my single friends, and so those single friends usually want to go out and do single girl things, but she's just so understanding of where you are in your spot in life, and she'll meet you there. And she knows that when she asks me to go out and do something, if I have responsibilities as a wife or a mother, that should be a priority over, just a night out. And she's so supportive and understanding of that. I just admire it, because it seems rare for people to really get where you are as opposed to what they need out of things.
Actually, I first met Gayle when she was interviewing me for which she didn't want to hire me. She told me later, after we became friends, she told me she didn't want to hire me because she thought I was too nice. Oh, I think she thought that I would get eaten alive by the people that we work with. She did hire me, and then we worked the same program together and became close and started hanging out outside, outside of work. We just have a lot of fun. I know one time was for her high school reunion. We didn't go to the same high school, but she didn't want to go alone. Dan didn't want to go with her because they went to the same high school, and high school reunions can be kind of lame. Well, we drank like a big bottle of wine before we went downtown and went to the high school reunion and just made a scene. It was pretty fun.
One thing I remember from high school, actually, we both had boyfriends at the time, and we were both going through kind of rough patches with these high school boyfriends. And I just really remember her just always giving me really good advice, even though I knew that she was, kind of sad. And she would always just kind of ask me, like, are you happy? Are you okay with what's going on? Just kind of reminding me that, because in high school you get so wrapped up in all these things, and it was really kind of, I think, wise of her at the time. And now looking back on it, I really realized that she was really kind of looking out for me as a friend, and knew that my happiness was important too.
There's so much that I adore about her. We went to this cabin a couple years ago in the summer, and it was just Dan and Gayle and my parents and my kids and my husband. And we spent the day fishing and just talking about kids and life and families. And just when I talk to her, she's so genuine and sincere. And just watching her interact with my children, I just felt like, some people you can just look at and they're going to be a good mom, they're going to be a good wife, they're just a good person, and that's how I feel about her. The night we were there, we stayed up really late one of the nights just talking, Dan, Gayle, and I, and just laughing and joking and just telling stories about when Dan was little, when Gayle was little, and just having those times, just like Dan and I would do when we were little. He would come into my room at night and we'd giggle and talk, and so it was with her, and it just felt so natural and exciting, just like, oh, I finally get that sister, I had begged my parents for so many years. I felt like, oh, good job, Dan, because there were some years there where I was like not too convinced. I knew my only chance of having a sister was my brothers, and that's pretty scary if you have brothers. So I feel like he did a good job picking out a wonderful sister for me.
The ring that Dan proposed with was a ring that Gayle and I had seen in a window of a jewelry store downtown when we were out one night, and she pulled me aside and she's like, this is it, this is the ring, I love this. And so I took a picture of it just as a joke and sent it to Dan that night, and I was like, FYI, just when, if you're thinking about proposing, this is, the ring that she really likes.
And so Dan called me and said, is that really a ring that she would want? And I was like, oh yeah, she loves that ring. And so throughout the year, we would talk about how I was proposed to, how Mom and Dad were proposed to. It doesn't have to be a big, extravagant event, and that's not really how Gayle is. So, do what's right for the two of you. And a couple months before he got the ring, I had texted him, and I'm like, hey, I just saw this, ad in the newspaper. Wasn't this the ring place that, you were going to get that ring from? And he was like, I'm on it. So I knew he was on it, and he was going to propose.
She called me, I think it was Thanksgiving morning, actually. And she said, you can't tell anybody. And I said, okay, what? Dan proposed! And she was super excited, and I had gotten engaged like a couple weeks before that, so we went through the whole wedding planning process together.
They're such wonderful people, and they're two very special people in my heart and in my life, and so I was very excited and very happy.
My advice for her would just be to, again, the advice she's given me, to make sure that you are happy, because when you are happy, it helps everyone around you kind of be happy as well. It just sort of radiates, and it kind of puts other people at ease. Gayle and Dan, for your future, I wish you a lifetime of happiness and health and as many babies as you want, and adventures and just pure bliss.
The phrase, marrying your best friend, it kind of came to mind, and since being married, I've realized how true that statement really is, and being each other's best friend will get you through a lot of things, good and bad, and so I wish or encourage you to be good to each other and be each other's best friend. Dan and Gayle, life is a wild, crazy adventure, so hold on tight, have lots of fun, laugh a lot, don't take things too seriously. So let's raise our glasses to Dan and Gayle.
There's going to be times that you need something from your partner that you're not getting, and if your path comes to that, to be honest about what you need and to be supportive and patient, because it's a process. Marriage is a work in progress always. Gayle and Dan, I'm so happy for you. I'm honored to be here today. I will be here for you every day after today. I'm excited to see where this journey takes you, and cheers to the future.
You two make such a great couple. I'm just so happy that you found each other. And it makes me so excited to imagine our lives as we go through the next stages with kids and family. And I'm just thrilled that we'll hopefully be able to do those things together. So for that, I'd like everybody to raise their glasses to a toast for Dan and Gayle, two people who could not be more meant for each other and are such an incredible and inspirational couple. And I'm so grateful again that they are in my life, and so happy that they found each other, and I can't wait to see all the blessings that are in store for them and kind of walk through life together with them. Cheers to Dan and Gayle.
It's all about communication, and what I have learned so far is my husband isn't always thinking exactly what I'm thinking, and perspective taking and just like how we view things is completely different. So it's just important to know like how your significant other is feeling and like why they're seeing things a certain way. Dan and Gayle, I'm so excited that I am part of your day, and I wish you guys a life full of happiness and so much fun together. Let's raise our glasses to the couple of the evening. Cheers.
I'd like to welcome Gayle to our family, mostly for selfish reasons, because I get a new sister, but also because you make Dan smile, you make him happy, you make our family feel complete, and we can't wait to spend every Christmas and Thanksgiving and fishing trip with you for many years to come. So I'd like everyone to raise their glasses and just honor this wonderful couple. Cheers.
Congratulations, Dan and Gayle, on the catch of your life.